Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. Today, we're going to talk about Profit First for Real Estate with David Richter, who's writing the book Profit First for Real Estate. If you're new, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why. The reality is 80% of business owners hate accounting. I don't blame them, but you need someone to help you make profitable decisions. Many bookkeepers and accountants are not good at this. Plus, they don't think like you do. You need someone on your team to help you make great financial decisions that ensure you have the time and the freedom to do what you love. Remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. We're going to learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant's too busy documenting your transactions and creating a rear-view mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this. And it's not your fault. We're not taught money in school. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. So profit comes first and expenses come last. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed material, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards of your labor and investment into your business. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Please let me know where you're struggling and what you need to hear more about. You can email me at questions@profitanswerman.com. I read every single email. Today, we're going to talk about real estate with David Richter. He's an active real estate investor who's been part of over 850 deals, which include wholesale, turnkey, BRRRRs, owner finance, rentals, lease options, and any other exit strategy you can think of. While growing and building a real estate business from 5 deals a month to an average of 25 deals a month, he realized that much more money was coming in and it was going right out. With the unique opportunity of sitting every seat as a real estate investor, he found a calling to the company's finance seat to help them see where their money was really going. Let's meet our guest and learn more. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, David Richter. It's great to have you join us today.
I'm glad to be here, Rocky.
And I'm excited for the conversation. So tell us a little bit about your business.
So I help real estate investors implement profit first inside their business. If that's kind of the one-liner there. So if you've heard of the profit first system, it's a cash flow system, and there's not many entrepreneurs I know more than real estate investors who need help on that side, just knowing where their money's going. So that's what I got into, and that's what I'm doing now. So we help people with profit first, and we help them know their numbers and help them actually get the information from their books. So, not a bookkeeper, not a CPA, we actually get those results for people and actually tell them what's going on so that way they can make better decisions.
And that's pretty much in line with what I do as well. And
awesome.
So it's a much needed help for most business owners. Real estate people are one of them. I know that attorneys are also really bad with it as well, as are doctors, and there's a couple of creatives. There's a whole bunch of separate other professions that are that way. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of people just aren't taught money, and that's part of the problem. And most people don't understand the business of business, and they're ashamed to admit it, but they love doing what they do, and being an accountant is not their thing.
Yeah, that's so true, because I think, like you said, it's not just the real estate investors, even though I work with them all the time, and it seems like that's a huge issue. I think it's just most people in general just haven't been taught that, and that's why I love the industry that we're in and what we're really doing, because it's not the bookkeeping work and it's not the CPA work. Is that stuff important? Super important to do that stuff. But what we provide, what you and I provide with our different services, is actually getting down deep into these companies and helping them know what's actually happening, what their story really is, helping them understand at a simple level what their financial statements mean without giving them a heart attack. So it's just trying to make it as simple as possible, where I don't feel like you said, it's taught much anywhere on how to run that business and really know what's going on.
And it's not. Nobody teaches how to run a business.
Awesome.
I have an MBA. They didn't teach us how to be profitable. They taught us how to read financial reports that made no sense. And
right.
So unfortunately, that's the way it is. So how long have you been with Profit First?
With Profit First, I'm coming up on about a year now, like with the actual organization. So read that book last year and had already had this idea for this company, and then launched the company, and then Profit First just fit in with that company. So I was helping people really understand their financials, and Profit First just took it to a whole nother level. So been with that about a year now.
So what was it that drove you to choose to join with Profit First?
Someone in my network that also helps real estate investors, but more on the business systems and processes side, Gary Harper, introduced me to the book. And because he's kind of one of the people in my tight circle, that I run ideas past or whatnot. And I told him about the idea for the company I had. And he said, that sounds like something that real estate investors need, and that is a gap that needs to be filled. And so he also recommended Profit First too. And that's where I kind of read that book and got deep into it and said, you know what, with the concept and my business plan that I have and that I've kind of started here, this really fits in with what I'm doing. So that's kind of how it all morphed into that.
And it does, right? We don't always set out in a particular direction. Sometimes we find opportunities and we take them. Yep. So what has been the outcome? You've been with Profit First for a year. What have you seen during that year?
Oh, man. There's so many ways to go from there. Because personally for this business that I'm doing, it's added a whole nother level of service, and it's been incredible. So for our business, it's been incredible. Then the companies that were actually implementing it, it's been life-changing. In their words, I don't want to just say, oh, it's been life-changing because we're doing it. But it's honestly opened their eyes, because here's a little context and a story. I was working with a real estate investor the year before I started this company, and we had already done, one of the things I really liked was the finance side and really helping. And so we got his books cleaned up and turned around and really in the shape that they should be. And he was able to make a lot of great decisions from there. Then when I opened this company, he was one of the first ones that says, I want to be your first client, when I officially started this business. And then we implemented Profit First. And so he already had great numbers, great knowledge of his financials and everything. But then we implemented Profit First, and that's taken him to a whole new level, because now he used to have, just like everyone else, that one main bank account as a real estate investor. And then when it had a certain amount in there, he felt real good on the inside, but if it went below that amount, he was starting to feel sick to his stomach. So it was really his temperature gauge on his financials was still, even though he had numbers and he still used that as his own internal temperature gauge for his business. And so Profit First had him split that out. And at first he was like, oh man, I'm not going to have it all in that one account. It was like, no, you're not. You're going to actually have it spread out, and you're going to save for taxes. You're actually going to pay yourself from your business. You're actually going to do some of these things, which has been incredible too. This guy who has a 50 unit rental portfolio flips, a dozen or so houses a year. So it's not like it's nothing to sneeze at what he's doing. And he hadn't really paid himself from the business. He had just been reinvesting it back in, like a lot of entrepreneurs. And now this year, when we started doing this, I told him, you need to pick a percentage and, from the suggested percentages, or at least start with where you can. And we're going to transfer from your flips so that way you could pay yourself. And to him, that was just awesome, because he really hadn't ever done that before. All the money he thought, he needed that money in that one account just to float his business. But now he has those numbers. Now he has the different accounts. Now he's actually able to pay himself, save up for taxes, do a lot of things that investors just don't think about, or that they think about, they're like, I can't pay myself for years, or can't make this be a viable business, or whatever it is that they're thinking. And that was really eye-opening to me too, because it took it from just knowing the numbers to actually something tangible to be like, oh no, you can actually pull this money out. This is your money as like what you can pay yourself. And that was another step. There's a lot of other stories that I have, but that was one of the most powerful ones for sure.
You know, it's funny because I flip houses, and we actually, every time we flip a house, we do payday. Like,
awesome.
Literally once we go to settlement, we come back from settlement, we deposit the check, we do our final numbers, we figure out what the profit is for that deal, and then we cut checks for the profit. The entire profit comes out and it's handed. I have a partner. We each take our profit distribution and we walk away with it. And then when another deal comes up, then we come back in and say, okay, we're ready to reinvest in a new deal. And we come to the table with the money, invest it. And we've always done that. So each time we finish a deal, we pretty much know to the penny where we ended up. And we've always the assumption is you take profit. Mm-hmm. I just can't believe people wouldn't do that, because eventually it somehow gets lost over time if you don't do that. It disappears into the ether. So you always have to make sure that you do that. I know you shared one, was that you said that was kind of your biggest. Is there another story that you'd like to share?
Sure. I have another one. This one, I'm actually writing Profit First for Real Estate Investors, and that book. And I'm actually, in that book is a story that I'm going to tell. I'll tell that story here. It's another great one. I had a guy that last year we got all of his financials together finally, because he really hadn't even known his numbers, where he was for profit and loss, his balance sheet, cash flow, anything like that. And we were able to get that, and it didn't look pretty for 2019. It just, it was a sad story. So we had the meeting with him to show him his numbers, and we were starting to go through it, like, this is what you have year to date, all that. And it was negative. And he was very upset. So I always picture him with like a corded phone slamming it down. But of course, this is like a cell phone, so that didn't happen. So it was a cell phone, and he hung up on me. And I was like, what in the world? So I gave him a couple hours, then texted him and was like, hey, you want to get back on a call? And so he called me then and said, hey, it's not you, it's the numbers. Just, like, knowing where we stand now, I just knew it was bad. I just didn't know where we stood. And like having to face that was kind of sobering. So he was really apologetic. But I mean, the story turns around from there. It's a great turnaround story because he actually did something about that. And he was able to, with his other business coach for systems and operations, be like, okay, I really need to streamline what I'm doing. And I need to focus on my highest and best use, which was, like, for him was wholesaling houses, because he was flipping some, and the flips that he had done had nowhere near the return on time or money that his wholesales had, just for his market and what he was doing. And so he started focusing on that, and it honestly turned his business around. Like, for now, he's done, let's just say, very well this year. He's sold, like, I think almost double. It's like, or like 1.5 times already what he sold in 2019. So he's like, the whole thing helped him turn around, but he needed to know his numbers, but he took action. He actually got someone in there during a really bad time in his business too, and said, I need help. Like, something's off. He was stressed about his finances. And this guy too, he's like 7 feet tall. Not really. I'm like 3'2", so everyone to me is like 7 foot tall. Not really, but he's a very tall guy. He's in the military. He's fought for our freedoms on the front line. Has seen combat. He's got 4 kids, and several of them are daughters. So this guy's tough. Like, he's definitely a tough guy, and his finances would make him go in a corner and cry. Like he said that those would keep him up at night. It was stressing him out. He didn't fear anything like his finances. And just knowing where he stood was the first huge step, even if it wasn't a great picture to be in. But now they're 10 times more profitable, have done more deals, and now they're able to make better informed decisions. And actually, they paid off a ton of credit card debt, or just a ton of debt. So those are just a couple of the stories that I'll get into. I am going to have both of those in the book. I believe I'll do the first story too. But those are just some stories from the book and just some things that I've seen where it's been eye-opening to real estate investors. And now that he's implemented Profit First too, it's been eye-opening too, because he was kind of like, I like having that one account to make me feel good, but now he sees it all spread out. And he's like, oh, I actually have money for operations, but to pay myself too. I'm saving for taxes instead of just waiting till the end of the year, because he's mainly wholesaling, so he does have a tax burden. It's not like some of the rental portfolios that might not have as much. But so he's now in a much better position because of Profit First and what we've done. And it's all because he took that action. He was the hero of that story there. He was the one that sought that and then actually said, I need to change. And it's just been an awesome turnaround. So those are just two of the stories that I have. I've got many more stories there just with the people that I've been working with, but I think those are probably the two ones that shine the most right now.
And I think that's a big part of it. And that was the big aha to me, was that realizing that a lot of business owners didn't want to face their numbers. And I was like, what do you mean they don't want to face their numbers? Like, you have to look at your numbers. This is what I do. And so that was kind of a big aha to me. And then the second thing is like you said, once you face your numbers, you can see where the best and highest use of your time is. For this gentleman, you figured out where it was for him, and now he can go spend his time there, which means he's becoming much more profitable than he was, and he's getting out of debt. He's, able to support his family, and he can take a paycheck, and we're supposed to do all these things.
Right. Yes. That's why we started the businesses. Yes. You didn't start the business to pay everyone else. You started the business to run like a business. And that's where a lot of people, I think, fall off the track, because they think, oh, I'm a real estate investor, or I'm a doctor. I'm not a business owner. I'm a doctor, or I'm that real estate investor. So, and a lot of people, we really need a huge tidal wave of just mindset change in the whole financial industry and the whole real estate industry, of just viewing the finances of, you need to know them in order to be that business owner. Even if you're doing deals just on the side and you're just doing them as a hobby, you've got another full-time job and you're just doing that for extra income or whatnot, that's still a business. That is not a hobby. That is something that you need to take very seriously, because that could be the key to your financial freedom and your financial future. So it's just a whole mindset shift that I think needs to happen in the real estate world, where number one, you need to be that business owner. And like Robert Kiyosaki talks in his books, the language of business is accounting. And I know a lot of people talk about that, but it's true. It's so true. And like you said, a lot of people just don't want to even face that music.
They don't. But unfortunately, my wife's an accountant. She's a CPA. Even the people who are in the business of accounting don't know how to read the tea leaves. Like, they know how to put stuff where it belongs, but they don't know how to dig in and say, what does this tell me? That's whole, being able to look at numbers and figure out the story and the opportunities. That's a whole different skill set.
It really is.
Just looking at numbers. And that's one of the things that I love doing. If I look at a tax return, it tells me a story. If I look at a spreadsheet, it tells me a story. It creates like, hey, where is this? Why isn't that happening? What's missing here? How did that happen? Like, I can tell where the problems are, and then we can go fix them, which is cool.
Yes, I totally agree with that too. That the accounting business almost kills your company versus saving it, because especially if they're doing a bad job too. There's so many accountants out there that don't know how to do real estate investing books, like that we have to go in there and train and help fix or whatnot. So don't get me on that rabbit trail. But besides that, just like you said, I love that, what you just said, because it's so true. They know how to do the inputting of the info or how to do a tax return, but they're not taking the time to actually help the clients know, is their business profitable or not. And honestly, that's why we have a job. That's why we have these companies that we have, because we come in and say, we know as real estate investors what you should be looking at. We know what is really going to get a return for your money, and we know what you should be managing and like where you should be. And that's why I feel like this is why it's so powerful, because especially when you're working with someone like Rocky or like someone like me, we're going to take the time to say, what do you really need out of this business? Who are you? Like, what are you doing in this business? And how can we get you to where you want to be? Where your CPA or bookkeeper, have they ever asked you that? It's like, do they just care about, where did this transaction come from? Where is it going to? Like, give me your log into QuickBooks so I can do the tax return. It's like that's if they just took those couple extra steps, they wouldn't need as many clients and they'd be able to help. And that's why I love this whole profit first mentality, because it's really about that, whether you're a bookkeeper, an accountant, a CPA, or just a coach. So I love the whole mentality behind it.
And it's very true. I think part of it is they speak the wrong language.
Yep.
And what I hear from the people that I work with is my accountant comes in, he talks to me, he's going a mile a minute, and he's saying, wah, 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 wah. I have no idea what he's saying. And I don't want to say anything to him because I feel stupid. Like, he doesn't explain things to me in a way that I understand, nor does he understand what I'm trying to do and can't help me achieve that. And that's kind of the role I play is translator and educator, so that they do have those types of choices.
Yep.
So you're writing the book Profit First for Real Estate. Clearly there's the Profit First book already out there. What's going to be different in the real estate book?
Well, there's going to be a lot of the stories that I told here on this podcast to give you some relatability to how it's actually worked with other people. I'd say another big one is right away, one of the foundational accounts, I'd introduce a sixth one, and that would be like OPM, other people's money, or a rehab account where you get money from private lenders and you stick it in that extra account. So that way, you know that you're spending other people's money and it's not yours. That's why it's so dangerous to have that one account, because if you have a couple $100,000 in there, you might think I'm doing really, really good, but then you're using it on the rehab, you're using it, it just keeps going down and down and down. Then you don't realize that you're using those private lenders' funds to run your just operation of the business. Then it gets really scary. So that's why you need to separate that out. Helps you attract private lenders if you're doing Profit First too. That's just another tip too that I've seen with and talked to some of these people that have private lending groups that are now like, oh, we like the investors that actually run on Profit First. And then I would say another thing in the real estate world is probably the frequency of allocations too. Like if you're a flipper and you're doing a ton of transactions, let's just say, you're doing maybe 10 in a single month, you might need to do it once a week. Like you might need to run the allocations. Now there's some people that we work with where they're literally selling one flip a quarter. They're really good flips, but we do the allocations when they sell the flip, and like then we know that we need to cover cash for the next 3 months because they're on track. Their business is built around like one property a quarter. So it's like managing their cash flow from in between those flips. And I love that too, because you've got different ends of the spectrum. You've got people who are doing a ton of flips or not as many flips. And Profit First, especially for real estate investors, helps you really manage that cash flow and know where that's going and know if you're going to be able, because once you take other people's money out of there, you really know where you stand operationally too. Like, can the profits that I've generated help the business run? Does my operating expense account really have enough in there to get me from flip to flip and from this next one that I have coming up? So that I'd say that's another big one. And then on the rental side too, that one's a fun one because we do real revenue a little bit differently in real estate too, like than what Mike says from the subcontractors and just materials. Like on the flipping side, I feel like real revenue is the sales price minus what you have into the property, basically your property profit, which is really easy to get if you're tracking it well in QuickBooks, like with classes, or exactly what that property made you and what the net profit of that property is. On the rental side, that one, the real revenue is more like the rental income that comes in minus your PITI or what your debt service is on that property. And I love seeing it from that because it's like, okay, pay the obligation that you know that you have. And then the rest can be allocated to like repair accounts or to the profit account, to the paying yourself account. But you almost start off right away knowing where your cash is, because like, I don't know how many landlords you've worked with, Rocky, but a lot of them don't even realize that part of the payments that are going out the door every month are on their balance sheet. So like, they don't see the full picture on the profit and loss. So I feel like Profit First is so great, especially for landlords, to see that full picture and to see like, okay, this is really the money that's going out every single month. And that way we know exactly what we have to allocate to. So there's just a couple of different things that in real estate and kind of real estate specifically in the investing world.
And you said something, so I guess not everyone puts all of the information into QuickBooks directly to the property. Like whenever we do flips, sometimes we will have multiple flips going, and I make sure that whatever the expense is, it's tied to the appropriate flip so that you know what the true cost was on that particular property, so we can evaluate, did we do well? Did we not do well? How did it compare to what our initial expectations were? And because of that, we've always been profitable on every single flip. On the rental side, landlords sit down and they say, okay, I have my rent. Yes, I have to pay my insurance and my taxes and the interest and the loan payment. But then they say, well, I'm going to set aside a certain amount for vacancy. And then, I have an allocation for property management. Regardless of whether you have a property manager, if you're the property manager, then you should take that percentage as the property manager. And then you might put money aside for turnover. And you might put money aside for, general maintenance as well as long-term maintenance. And when you buy the property, most people sit down and they figure all this out, and then they put all the money in one account. And then they have no idea what's going on. And then it comes time to repair a roof or replace a roof, and they have no money. And then they hesitate. Well, maybe I can get away with it. And then the roof leaks. And then, the tenant's mad. Now you have turnover. Now you're creating frustration,
right.
And you start down this spiral. Whereas if you set up accounts for long-term maintenance, if you set up accounts for vacancy and turnover, if you set up accounts for your general maintenance, and you take those small percentages every month and you put them in those accounts, when you have a vacancy, your cash flow isn't affected. When it's time to replace the heat, there's money in that large maintenance account to cover your new heat. And the new heating system is generally not a surprise, right? You know that everything has a certain lifespan. You can probably guess how long it's going to last and have a pretty good idea. Same thing for appliances, right? They need to be replaced.
Yeah.
And having the money ready so that when the time comes, you're not freaking out and going, how am I going to pay for this appliance? My kids' tuition bills due. I've got this,
Yep.
Maybe I can wing it another 2 weeks. And now your tenant's mad at you. And when you have good cash flow and you can treat your tenants well, you get better tenants that stay there, get better care of you, pay you on time, and you don't have any of this frustration. And so setting up all those accounts is important. Taking the time to put money aside so that you're covered for your rentals or whatever it is you're doing just makes life 10 times easier.
Yeah, I love that. So there's going to be a lot of good stuff in this book specifically for real estate investors, and I love all the ideas that have come out of it through working with people like Rocky too, and the great insights there. So really excited about getting this information out there. That's why I want to do as many podcasts as I can now, because I feel like I want to get all the information out there. I want nothing hid from anyone. Like, just, you need this now. You need this information so that way you can stay in business.
Well, and I think for a lot of people, what I hear a lot of times is, okay, I read the book, but I don't know how to take the first step.
Right.
Or I'm not sure what to do. And that's where somebody like one of us can help them implement the system. And as you talked about with your examples, they're immediately starting to work towards profitability. And it's the same thing I see. We set the allocations and they start making changes immediately and making wiser decisions. And I've got lots of guys who've been able to cut their costs dramatically because now they realize, hey, maybe I don't really need to spend on that, or it's not the best way for me to do that. So in talking to people, what have you seen as some of the most fun or maybe different ways that people have spent their profit dollars?
Most fun ways, which is funny because some of them just love paying down the debt. Some of these guys have carried debt for so long, they're like, what in the world? I'm actually starting to pay it off. It's just like someone getting there, making sure that they have, because we set up a debt account for some of these people, and then they're funneling money from every flip or whatnot or wholesale, and they're paying down debt. And then the other one was just being able to actually take money out and see like people actually say, whoa, like this is an actual business now. Those have probably been the most fun I've had like on those calls, because it's been like eye-opening to them. Like, oh, wow, this is really working. I'm really seeing progress, and I'm actually able to do the things that I wanted to do when I started setting off on this business.
So one of the questions I get, and maybe, a lot of people think you don't have to set up the accounts. You can do this all in the accounting software. And I find that it's not true, because all the money's in the same account and nobody's looking at the software. I don't know what you have found.
Yeah, that's definitely true, especially at a certain stage. If you're still doing, unless you have just a rock star bookkeeper and you are a rock star business owner who understands financials and how important they are and are actually looking at them on a daily basis, like that's a morning ritual or something for you. If that's not you, which that's like 99% of people listening probably, then you need to set up the accounts separately, because you probably look at your bank accounts on a pretty regular basis. So that's why it's so powerful to actually set up the accounts versus just running it in the software. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Well, and setting up the automated systems, I was just talking to somebody before this call, and that was kind of the comment that life keeps getting in the way. But when you have automated systems and you implement them, life never gets in the way, because the money flows where it's supposed to, and it's always there when you need it. And so you don't have to worry about it. You get to sleep at night, and life is good. Is there any other advice that you have for people, whether they be in real estate or not in real estate, with regards to Profit First?
Implement it right away. That would be number one. Number two is you can really know more about your business than just implementing the bank accounts. I love the assessment to see kind of where you've been and kind of to project where you're going to. That's been a huge, huge benefit of Profit First for real estate investors, is seeing what's my cash profitability and what do I project it's going to be over this next quarter. And really, that's been huge for a lot of people. And then really knowing, the other big thing is how profitability ties into like your measurables for marketing too, and getting more deals and more profitable deals, and knowing what acquisition source is better for you than other ones, and what's returning actual dollars on your investment for that. So that's just a couple other things that Profit First really unlocks for you, because you can say, oh, I made this on this house, and like the actual profit, this is where that lead source came from. And oh, wow, look at that. 5 of them came from this lead source, and this is how much I made, and I spent X in it, and that's like a 5 times return. So it's just a lot of different things that you can do with the whole system that relate to you, not only knowing your numbers better, but like actually making more money. So I love this system all around. That's why I'm an ambassador for it, and why I wanted to write the book, because it needs to be in every single real estate investor's heads and hands.
And it also gives you the ability to notice when things are changing. You think that you can do something for X cost, and you start to do a couple deals and you realize, hey, wait a minute, prices have gone up. You don't always notice that in the short term. You'll notice it in the long term. One of the cool things about Profit First is it gives you much quicker feedback. And so you'll notice those changes. And you'll also see if there's certain things that you're forgetting about when it comes to doing your deals. The cost of the dumpster, the cost of mowing the lawn during the summer and shoveling snow while the rehab's going on, because you forgot that had to get done and it wasn't part of your projection. And a lot of the it's a lot of the little stuff that adds up, especially on the flips, that you just don't think about. Whenever we budget for a flip, we automatically add 10% just for stuff, because stuff happens.
Right. Yeah.
And it gives us the room to handle all the little things that we forget about.
I love it. I love the whole system. Yeah. We could go on and on and on about all the benefits of this system. Yeah. I love Profit First. People
just need to start and get to moving.
Exactly.
If people would like to connect with you and find out more about what you do, what is the best way for them to do that?
I have a company that actually implements it, simplecfosolutions.com. So that's our main company where we implement Profit First and are kind of that fractional CFO. So go to simplecfosolutions.com. There's an apply button on there. And then there's also profitfirstrei.net or profitfirstforrealestateinvestors.com. That's the other one where we're going to be posting. Our podcast is on there too. And then we've also got like updates on the book. We'll be posting updates there. If you have a great story, you can submit it there too. So that's where we kind of are going to be housing that. It's definitely in like beta or stage 1 phase right now. But that's the other website that you can connect with us to.
Cool. And I will put those in the show notes, so you can just look in there and you'll find easy links to connect you with that information. Thank you so much for joining us today, David.
Yep. Thanks, Rocky.